attentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to achieve the desired success of Krishna Prema. Once again, I welcome everyone to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Let us move on to our next part of the session, which is Srimad Bhagavatam class. May I know who all joined this morning?
हरे कृष्ण विनीता गंधर्विका माता जी दंडवत प्रणाम शिला प्रभुपाद की जय गुरु महाराज की जय प्रीतिदासी नमस्कार हरे कृष्ण
Preeti Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to the call, Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna, Dr. Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Arvind Das from Chicago. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Arvindaksha Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Shri Prabhupada, Jai Gurudev. This is Hari Radha from Fairfax, Virginia. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hari Radha Mataji. Welcome to the call. Thank you so much for joining in every day.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Anita from Sharjah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji. Thank you so much for joining every day.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shivani from Ashram, Virginia. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shivani Mataji. Nice to hear your voice every day and welcome to the call. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, all glories to Prabhupada and Guru Maharajis. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Rani.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining and giving your recitation every day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shyama Gauri Devidasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shama Gauri Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nice to see you every day, Mataji. And thank you so much for all the things that you do for us. Hari Bol, welcome to the call.
Thank you, Mataji, for your services. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Vinita Gandharvi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam to you and all Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji. Welcome to the call. Nice to have you every day on every call, Mataji. Hari Bol.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी दंडवत प्रणाम प्लीज एक्सेप्ट माय humble obeisances all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga all glories to the assembled devotees Yashamati from Chicago
Hare Krishna, Yashimati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna, is there anybody who'd like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Indulekha Karuna Devidasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna, Indulekha Karuna Mataji. Welcome to the call, Mataji. Nice to have you every day. And all glories to your services, Mataji. Hari Bol. So is there anybody who'd like to introduce themselves before we start in the recording? Hare Krishna, welcome to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Balaram Shakti Prabhu to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 19, verse number 9. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Before I hand over the call to you, I would like to hand over it to Raj Prabhu for the brief introduction. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please take over.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanva Pranam to you and all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is a brief introduction for Prabhuji. His Grace, Balaram Shakti Prabhuji, is a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj and a brahmachari devotee with his Concha party. A metallurgical engineering graduate, BST joined Pennsylvania State University and graduated with PhD in material science in 2007. While at Pennsylvania State University, Prabhuji took to Krishna consciousness as a member of Penn State Vedic Society. And he was mentored by his Grace Yugal Kishore Prabhuji. After he moved back to India, he chose to become a full-time monk at Radha Gopinath Mandir. In May 2010, after his brahmachari training, he moved to Govardhan Eco Village and served full-time till December 2021. Prabhuji is currently in Chennai assisting his aged parents. He is an extremely erudite scholar of the Vaishnava scriptures and travels far and wide giving spiritual discourses. This is a brief introduction for Prabhuji. Mataji, over to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining and giving your valuable time and association this morning. As always, we are waiting for your beautiful class with the beautiful PPT, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity to share Srimad Bhagavatam with you. So we'll start. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminte Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much again for giving me this opportunity. So today we'll be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, 19th chapter, 9th verse. So we will chant the verse and the meaning and the translation and the purport, and we will see what we can discuss from this verse today. Okay, so this is in the first 8 verses we saw, or you would have seen, the prayers offered by Hanumanji to Shri Ramachandra, Lord Shri Ramachandra in Kim Purusha Varsha. And today we are going to discuss, starting from today, we will be discussing how Lord Naranarayan Rishi, who are the presiding deities of Bharata Varsha, of which we are a part, how they are glorified through various prayers. That's what we are going to see today. So anyway, so we will chant the verse, read the translation, and then see the purport. So this is a prose verse again, as we see in most of the verses of Srila of the 5th canto. So I will read it and then we will see. Bharatepi varshe Bhagavan Narayanakhya akalpantam upachita dharma jnana vairagya aishwarya upashama uparama atmopalambanam anugrahaya atmavatam anumpaya tapo avyakta gatis charati. Shukadeva Goswami continues, the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are inconceivable. He has appeared in the form of Naranarayan in the land of Bharatavarsha at the place known as Badrika Ashrama to favor his devotees by teaching them religion, knowledge, renunciation, spiritual power, sense control, freedom from false ego. He is advanced in the opulence of spiritual assets and he engages in executing austerity until the end of this millennium. This is the process of self-realization. So, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, people in India may visit the temple of Naranarayan at Badrika Ashram just to learn how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his incarnation as Naranarayan, engages in austerities to teach the people of the world how to achieve self-realization. It is impossible to realize oneself simply by absorbing oneself in speculation and material activities. One must be very serious about self-realization and the practice of austerity. Unfortunately, the people of this age of Kali do not even know the meaning of austerity. Under these circumstances, the Lord has appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to bestow upon the fallen souls the easiest method of self-realization, technically called Cheto Darpana Marjanam, cleansing of the dirt of the core of one's heart. This method is extremely simple, and anyone can chant the glorious Krishna Sankirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In this age, there are different forms of so-called advanced scientific knowledge, such as anthropology, Marxism, Freudianism, nationalism, and industrialism. But if we work very hard under their guidance, instead of adopting the process practiced by Naranarayan, we shall waste our valuable human form of life. Thus, we shall certainly be cheated and misled. So this is the purport. So as soon as I went through this verse and this section, I had a few themes in mind. First, I was feeling a little bit disappointed. I was hoping that I could get off the first 8 verses, because we were just recently discussing, that was about Hanumanji worshipping Lord Ramachandra and offering praise to Lord Ramachandra in the Kim Purusha Varsha. And there is a very sweet description of that worship of Hanumanji in Kim Purusha Varsha and his conversation with Narada Muni, that is described in Brihad Bhagavatam. So I had a desire to share that theme today, but I thought, but I saw that it was already the 9th verse, so 8th verse is over. I still thought, okay, it's okay, because they have just heard from Srimad Bhagavatam how Hanumanji offers his prayers to Lord Ramachandra. But then I thought, okay, maybe devotees must have spoken about it, so I will not do it. So then I decided, then the second topic that I had in mind was, here Srila Prabhupada says that unfortunately the people of this age of Kali do not even know the meaning of austerity. So I was thinking, what are the drawbacks of the age that we are living? And but there are certain good qualities also, right? Astihi eko mahan gunaha kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. So there are many unbelievable good qualities of the age of Kali also. So I thought I could discuss on this theme, and then but then I felt that here Srila then I thought Naranarayan Rishi had dedicated their lives to performing austerities, and Prabhupada also focuses a big portion of his purport about austerity. He says, unfortunately, the people of this age of Kali do not even know the meaning of austerity. So therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give Nama Sankirtan. So, but still, Prabhupada says that it is impossible to realize oneself simply by absorbing oneself in speculation and material activities. One must be very serious about self-realization and the practice of austerity. So then I thought, actually the most relevant theme that we could discuss today, of course we could discuss all the 3 topics, just that we will have to have 6 hours of Bhakti Sangha discussion, then probably it is possible. But with the available time, we will discuss one of these topics and try to complete it. That itself is a big achievement for me, if I can do that. So we will discuss this theme of the role of Vairagya in Bhakti. what is the role of Vairagya in Bhakti? How is it practiced? What kind of Vairagya is supposed to be practiced and what it means? How do we practice it? We will try to touch this topic today and see where we can take it from there. So I will be discussing briefly from initially to start with from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and then we will have some insights by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur from Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita on this, and then we will discuss something from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So to understand this topic properly. Okay, so let's start. So the theme that we are going to discuss is the role of Vairagya in Bhakti, because we all talk about it. We all hear about how important is austerity. So we will try to see what is the role of Vairagya in our practice of devotional service. So, okay. First thing, one of the first things after discussing the 64 limbs of devotional service that Srila Rupa Goswami mentions in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is that he mentions that how Jnana and Vairagya are actually not limbs of Bhakti. He says they are not. See, limbs of Bhakti means what? What is the meaning of the Anga, Bhakti Anga or limbs of Bhakti? Limbs of Bhakti means they have to be practiced exclusively by practitioners of devotional service. So he says Jnana and Vairagya need not be, they are not limbs of Bhakti. You don't have to cultivate them. You don't have to cultivate practicing austerities. Even though Prabhupada is mentioning here one has to practice austerity. So how do we understand this? Right? So Srila Rupa Goswami says, Jnana Vairagyayor Bhakti Praveshaya Upayogita. Ishat Pratamameveti Na Angatvam Uchitam Tayoho. He says, Jnana Vairagyayoho, Jnana and Vairagya, Bhakti Praveshaya Upayogita are suitable little bit for entering into Bhakti. Ishat Pratamam Eva, somewhat useful only in the beginning of Bhakti. Somewhat, little bit. Na Angatvam Uchitam Tayoho. Na Angatvam Uchitam Tayoho. They are not, but they are not fit to be called as limbs of devotional service at all. This is what Srila Rupa Goswami says. And Jiva Goswami explains this. He says that Jnana here refers to realization of the Tvam Padartha, Tat Padartha, and finally realization of their oneness. So Tvam Padartha, Jnana refers to knowledge of the Jivatma, knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is Tat Padartha, and knowledge of their oneness, their qualitative oneness, Tattvamasi. To some extent, there is qualitative oneness between the Jiva and the Supreme Lord, even though the Jiva and the Supreme Lord are even not qualitatively one. They are qualitatively similar, because in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu we see that the Jiva has only 50 qualities in minute quantities, but Krishna has 64 qualities in minute quantities. So therefore, if you take Jiva, his qualities, and make it infinite, it will not become Krishna, right? Because it will only be 50 qualities in full. Even Lord Shiva has 55 qualities. Lord Narayana has 60 qualities and Krishna has 64 qualities. So the 14 qualities are not there even in infinitesimal proportions in Jivatma. So they are not even qualitatively one. You can say qualitatively somewhat similar. When Prabhupada talks about Jiva and the Supreme Lord to be qualitatively one, what Prabhupada means is qualitatively similar, but not exactly qualitatively one, because they are not. So qualitative oneness is true, or similarity is true. There is quantitative difference, and then there is qualitative difference, because 14 qualities are not there, right? So if you see, so there is qualitative similarity. Okay. Then there is qualitative difference. Then there is quantitative difference. There is qualitative difference, quantitative difference, and qualitative similarity. While the Jnanis meditate on this qualitative similarity, that which is described by verses such as Tattvamasi, you are that, which means you are qualitatively similar. That's what it means. So they focus on that. But as Vaishnavas, we recognize this. But this is not our active meditation. We actively meditate on the qualitative difference and the quantitative difference between the Jivatma and the Supreme Lord. Because when we understand that the Supreme Lord is qualitatively superior and quantitatively unimaginably superior, then we understand that He is the master, we are the servant, we are supposed to serve Him. Okay. So this meditation on the difference, the Bheda part, actually inspires our service attitude. Whereas meditation on this qualitative oneness or similarity diminishes our, even though it is siddhantically right, it is philosophically right, there is definitely similarity between the Jivatma and the Supreme Lord qualitatively, but meditation on that aspect actually kills the service attitude, which is our actual constitutional position. Jivera Swaruphoy Krishna Nityadas. So therefore we don't do that. So this is called Brahma Gyan, consisting of 3 stages. So he says the word Ishat somewhat means that the knowledge of the Jiva and Brahman are useful, but realization of oneness should be rejected. We don't want to meditate on the oneness aspect because it kills our service attitude. So this is about Jnana, but anyway, we are talking about Vairagya here. Vairagya in the verse means the type of renunciation that is useful only for Brahma Jnana. So this kind of Vairagya is actually dry renunciation. So that part of Vairagya which is contrary to Bhakti should also be rejected. So what kind of Vairagya is contrary to Bhakti we are going to see now very soon. That is the meaning of Ishat in relationship with Vairagya. There is some Vairagya which is favorable. We will talk about it very soon. Like say for example, Srila Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bhogadi Tyaga Krishnasya Hetave, in talking about one of the 64 limbs. He says a devotee should give up sense gratification, which is unfavorable for Krishna consciousness, for the pleasure of Krishna. So for the pleasure of Krishna, one should give up sense gratification. That is recommended. Bhogadi Tyaga Krishnasya Hetave. For the pleasure of Krishna, we do give up sense gratification. That is recommended. We should do that. But independently cultivating Vairagya is not recommended, but it is very much practiced in the paths of Jnana, Yoga, etc. Vairagya is separately cultivated, but this is not so much cultivated in Bhakti. And if one cultivates that, it is actually an obstacle to one's practice of Bhakti. He says, Jnana and Vairagya are somewhat useful only in the beginning of Bhakti. That means that they are suitable only at the stage of giving up attachment to other objects. Which means if one is so attached to constantly engaging in sense gratification, active sense gratification, like watching TV or browsing the internet, watching YouTube videos so constantly that he is unwilling to spend even 1 minute to chant the holy name. He is unwilling to spend even 1 minute to take darshan of the deities. So if one is so much addicted, then he needs that much vairagya to turn and take darshan of the deities once, and he can go back to his browsing or watching TV. That much vairagya is needed. That is why he says, Ishat pratamameva, only in the beginning. Because once he takes darshan of Krishna, then Krishna takes over. Till then, that little bit of vairagya is needed. But after that, it need not be individually cultivated. That's what Srila Rupa Goswami says. When attachments have been given up and a person begins practicing bhakti, jnana and vairagya become insignificant. Once you start practicing bhakti, then there is no time that should be spent for cultivating this kind of jnana or the kind of vairagya. Because we don't have sufficient time to practice bhakti only. Why bother practicing vairagya? So also, after beginning bhakti, thinking of these processes will distract a person from bhakti. Ideally, one should be thinking about pleasing Krishna, right? Instead of thinking about pleasing Krishna, if one is thinking about, oh, this vrata, that vrata, I should not eat this, I should not eat that, I should not see this, I should not see that. If one is constantly meditating on that, then how will he favorably think of serving Krishna? Right? So, like that. They are useful only in the very beginning of bhakti. So, why? What is the problem with individually cultivating some jnana and vairagya? What is the problem? Won't it help bhakti? If I'm more detached, it's very good for bhakti, right? So what is the problem in cultivating some vairagya? So Srila Rupa Goswami says, Yad ube chitta katinya hetu prayah satam mate sukumara swabhaveyam bhaktis tad hetu ririta. He says, Yad ube, because ube, both means jnana and vairagya, because both jnana and vairagya, prayah, generally, chitta katinya hetu means it becomes the cause, chitta means heart, katinya means hardness, hetu, because generally this jnana and vairagya make the heart very harsh and hard. Satam mate, therefore, the very authoritative devotees have concluded that bhakti tad hetur irita, that only bhakti is the cause of entering into bhakti. It is not jnana or vairagya. And what is the nature of bhakti? Sukumara swabhaveyam. This bhakti, the nature of this bhakti is sukumara swabhava, very soft. But the nature of jnana and vairagya is they make the heart very hard. And when the heart is hard, then bhakti has to work overtime to make it soft. Right? So actually, in one sense, if someone has practiced severe austerities through jnana or yoga, for such a person to accept bhakti has to do a lot of hard work to soften the heart of that person. It is possible that maybe a lot of material impressions of sense gratification has been wiped out by the practice of jnana and vairagya. But what about the hard heart? What about the heart which has become very hard? How it has to be made soft. So therefore, he says that yad ube chitta katinya hetu prayah satam mate. It makes the heart very hard. Now the question is, how does jnana and vairagya, why would it make the heart hard? So why would it make the heart hard? So he says, this verse speaks of another fault in being attached to jnana and vairagya. What is that? They cause hardness in the heart. So why jnana makes the heart hard? In jnana, one must deliberate on the truth by defeating a variety of other philosophies. So you want to defeat other philosophies, whoever comes, and that act of defeating by setting your point of view right, that actually that argumentative tendency actually makes the heart very hard. That is a problem with the path of jnana. And what about vaira? In vairagya, one must renounce enjoyment by repeated toleration of suffering. So when one repeatedly says no, 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 then it makes the heart very hard because there is no juice, right? Because the senses and mind need some favorable experience. If favorable, uh, if unfavorable but likable experiences are rejected, and no favorable and likable experience is given, then it makes the heart very hard. So, see, some likable experience should be there. If one keeps on telling no, 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 then one then when favorable things also come, they will say no, because they will get sort of, you can say, habituated to saying no, and it makes the heart very hard. So then when it comes to Krishna, then they should say, then one will start thinking that Krishna should be more sense controlled. Why should he eat so much? Why should he wear such opulent clothing? Because we have in our value system, we have put that progress means rejection. So when we see the Supreme Lord accepting and devotees encouraged to give, then it clashes with our value system about what we consider to be progress. And this hard heart makes us very judgmental also. When we see others unable to practice, because we have defined ourselves in terms of renunciation. When we see others unable to do it, we start judging. It's a symptom of hard heart. And when one progresses on the path of bhakti, his softening of his heart is supposed to create a sense of empathy, compassion, a desire to help, a desire to lend a helping hand to the other person. These are the symptoms which are supposed to manifest. But if one follows these kind of hard austerities, they make the heart very hard, actually. And our favorable consciousness is compromised. So, Jiva Goswami says, the very nature of these practices is harsh or unpleasant, and thus the heart becomes similarly harsh. This is the opposite of sweetness and softness of the heart. The heart is supposed to become very soft and sweet when one takes up to the path of bhakti. But then there is a very important, you can say, accusation. Okay. There is a very important accusation which seems very valid, which is, people may say, but how can a person enter into higher and higher stages of bhakti without some sort of assistance? Okay. So if you are in the beginning stages of bhakti, it's okay. But if you want to go to the higher and higher stages of bhakti, you need some assistance of vairagya. Without getting that assistance, how would you progress? So the answer is given here. So Srila Rupa, he says that bhakti is said to be the cause of entering bhakti, and previous acts of bhakti alone are the cause of entering into higher stages of bhakti. So So that is the ahaituki nature of bhakti. It is bhakti which causes bhakti. And practice of lower levels of bhakti causes qualification for higher levels of bhakti. So therefore bhakti causes bhakti. There is no other cause. There is no external cause for bhakti other than bhakti itself. So if one has to progress quickly, if one has to progress quickly on the path of bhakti, then he has to spend more time practicing bhakti only. He should not waste his time in trying to intensify his practice of bhakti, or in wanting to progress faster and faster in bhakti. One should not dilute it by spending time on jnana and vairagya or any other such practice, because bhakti does not need the support of any other process. It is bhakti which supports all the other processes, right? So so therefore you do not, if you want to thicken milk, if you want to make the milk more condensed, then you have to heat the milk. You can't add more water to the milk and hope that it will become more condensed. We are trying to be counterproductive. So if we want to progress fast on the path of bhakti, we can afford to dilute it with the processes of jnana and vairagya. So then he continues. He says, he quotes this verse from 11th canto. This is Krishna's teachings to Uddhava Gita. He says, Tasmad madbhakti yuktasya yogino vai madatmanah na jnanam na cha vairagyam praya shreyo bhavediha. He says, Tasmad, therefore, my dear Uddhava, yogino madbhakti yuktasya, for yogi who is engaged in my bhakti yoga, madatmanah, with his mind which is fixed on me, jnanam cha vairagyam, this jnana and vairagya, na prayah shreyo bhaved, is generally not the means of attaining success here in this world. So it's generally not the means of attaining success in this world. He should rather practice bhakti. And embedded within bhakti are elements of vairagya which can actually make the heart soft. Like we saw, Bhogadi Tyaga Krishnasya Hetare. Yeah. So, like we try to give up those in those activities, those consuming those items or engaging our senses in those kind of activities which are unfavorable for bhakti, which will displease Krishna. So with a desire to not displease Krishna, we refrain from something, or we give up something. Like say, for example, see, this is not true just in the case of material pursuit in the spiritual realm, but even in material realm, if you see, when you give up something with a desire to please someone, it does not make the heart hard. Let's say if someone likes, let's say, butterscotch ice cream. If someone likes butterscotch ice cream, and there is one butterscotch ice cream in the refrigerator, and his son also likes butterscotch ice cream, but there is only one butterscotch ice cream, and only one of them could eat. And on that particular day, you get a very intense desire to eat that butterscotch ice cream, but your son says, I want it. And what will that person do? He will gladly give it to his son, because more than the eagerness to get some pleasure out of eating that butterscotch ice cream, one would definitely feel all the more pleasure in seeing that smile in his beloved son's face as a result of his vairagya or sacrifice, right? And this will not make the heart hard. This is even in the material realm, if you see. But if one constantly, develops this attitude of saying no and rejecting things without any tangible reason to please others, then that kind of vairagya actually hardens the heart. So it's not that there is no element of vairagya in bhakti, but that element of vairagya also is rewarded amply by getting the satisfaction of pleasing the Guru, pleasing the Vaishnavas, pleasing Krishna. So when you see another Vaishnava being very happy by your sacrifice, you may sacrifice some of your prasadam, some of your wealth, something that you may like, you may give it to that Vaishnava so that he becomes pleased. So it softens the heart. So dadati pratigrihnati guhyamakyati prichati. Bhungte bojayate cheva shadvidam priti lakshanam. When you give it to another person, you earn his priti, you earn his affection. And that affection softens the heart. So this is the point actually. So, but independent practice of vairagya for no purpose, for no tangible purpose, not for pleasing anyone, that kind of vairagya definitely hardens the heart. In fact, one should not think that a bhakti yogi who is not independently practicing some vairagya, one should not think that he will lose anything, because it is mentioned here that the goals of jnana, vairagya and other processes are achieved by bhakti alone. Bhakti alone is capable of achieving what one can achieve through vairagya or jnana and much more actually. So Srila Rupa Goswami says here in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Kintu jnana viraktadi sadhyam bhakteva siddhyati. However, jnana virakti adi sadhyam. Sadhyam means goal. The goal that can be achieved by jnana, vairagya, etc., bhaktya eva siddhyati, can be achieved just by bhakti alone. So the goal of jnana is liberation, the goal of vairagya is jnana. These are needed. These are indeed achieved by bhakti alone. Only by practicing bhakti one can achieve everything. And this is described in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, very famous verse in Krishna's teaching to Uddhava. He says, Yat karmabir yat tapasa jnana vairagyatascha yogena dana dharmena shreyobir itarairapi sarva mad bhakti yogena mad bhakta labate anjasa swarga apavarga madhama katanchid yadi vanchati. He says, Yat karmabir, what can be achieved by karma, tapasya, jnana, vairagya, yogena, dana, dharma, and shreyobir itarairapi, and all other kinds of auspicious activities, sarvam, all of that, mad bhakti yogena, just by practicing my bhakti yoga, mad bhakta, my devotee, labate, he can achieve, anjasa, very easily. Very easily my devotee can achieve all of that just by practicing bhakti yoga. Swarga, apavarga, madhama, katanchid divanchati. And if by practice of that bhakti yoga, if my devotee wants to go to heaven, or if he wants to go to, if he wants to achieve liberation, or if he wants to achieve my abode, I'm very eager to bestow upon my devotee, he says. But one may ask, but why would a devotee by practice of devotional service want either swarga or liberation or even the abode of the Lord for that matter? We are supposed to perform bhakti only for the pleasure of Krishna and only for the purpose of establishing a relationship with Krishna. Why would a practicing pure devotee want to practice bhakti to achieve either swarga or liberation or even the abode of the Supreme Lord, one may ask. He says, no, generally not, not as a goal, but as a preaching tool, right? Like say, for example, Chitraketu Maharaj. So Chitraketu Maharaj, he after perfecting his bhakti, he wanted to go to the Vidyadhar Loka and preach there. So for that, he wanted an airplane with very beautiful women surrounding him, not for his own pleasure, Gapayan Harimishwar, so that together they could very beautifully sing the glories of Krishna and by that way attract other people to the path of bhakti. So he had not an iota of desire for sense gratification with those women, but he wanted that particular way of preaching. He wanted to preach that particular way. It is perfect. And about liberation, it is mentioned that Lord Shiva wants to go to Brahmajyoti to preach. So not so that he can experience the peace of impersonal Brahmajyoti, but he wants to preach even to those people who are considered most unfortunate actually. And we consider even the desire to go to the abode of the Lord as not the highest desire. But why would a devotee want that? So Prahlad Maharaj wanted it. So not so that he could go and enjoy the facilities of the spiritual world, but let's see. So Prahlad Maharaj says, Trastosmyaham kripanavatsala dussahogra samsara chakra kadanat grasatam pranitah baddhasva karma birushat tamatengri moolam pritopa varga sharanam vayase kadanu. So Prahlad Maharaj says, Trastosmyaham, my dear Lord, I am very distressed. I am very fearful. Ugra samsara chakra kadanat grasatam pranitah. My dear Lord, you have thrown me in this material world and that too in the association of these demoniac people, that in their association, I am afraid that my consciousness will also become degraded. They are hating you and I am afraid that in their association, I will also start hating you one day. So therefore, when will you Pritopa Baddhaswa karma birushat tamatengri moolam ushattama te angri moolam vayase kadanu. When will you call me to your lotus feet? So Prahlad Maharaj is expressing here. So he says, please take me to your abode, because in your abode everyone is a devotee and in their association I will never become inimical to you. But here in this abode of the demons, I am constantly surrounded by atheistic people who hate you, who want to kill you, and in their association I am afraid that I might also become similar minded. So therefore here Prahlad Maharaj is wanting to go to the spiritual world, not because he is afraid of suffering in this material world. Because in the same prayer, Prahlad Maharaj says, Naivodvijay paraduratyaya vaitaranyas tvadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chitta. He says, my dear Lord, I am absolutely not afraid of this material world, he says. Not afraid of what? Not afraid of the threefold miseries that come with staying in this material world. Adhyatmika, adibhautika, and adidevik kleshas. He says, Twadvirya gayana mahamrita magna chitta. Just by singing your glories, hearing your glories in the association of devotees, I will easily overcome this threefold misery. So I am not afraid of this material world. I am not at all afraid of the suffering of this material world. But of course he says, actually I am afraid of the material world. Why? Because I am afraid that improper association will contaminate my consciousness. Therefore, take me to your abode where everyone worships you. In their association, my desire to serve you will also become more blossomed. So, is this desire for mukti? Is this actually desire for liberation? No. Desire for liberation means not wanting to suffer the threefold miseries in this material world. That is desire for liberation. But if one wants to go to the spiritual world because he finds the mentality of people in this material world very unfavorable to serve the Supreme Lord, and if he is afraid that his own consciousness will get contaminated, that desire, for that purpose, if one wants to go to the spiritual world, that is bona fide desire. Okay, so sometimes my devotees may want these kind of things, just like like Chitraketu wanting heaven for preaching. Similarly, we also sometimes say, well, I can do online preaching quite well. So if I desire a laptop with some internet connection, is that karma mishra bhakti? Absolutely not, because I want to utilize it to spread the glories of Krishna. So if I want for that purpose, that is not karma mishra bhakti. So similarly, we want a laptop to do online preaching so that we can spread the glories of Krishna far and wide. So if Chitraketu Maharaj similarly wants to go to heaven and preach there in Vidyadhar Loka, that is not, that's a kind of service that he wants to render, right? Like that. So anyway, the point that we are discussing here is, one should not think that a devotee will miss out on anything if he is not practicing vairagya, because whatever can be achieved by vairagya, jnana, etc., can be achieved easily by bhakti. Like that. And then actually someone may ask this question, that someone may raise this point of so clarification. I need clarification. So previously, vairagya was condemned at the beginning of bhakti because it causes the heart to become hard. So you said vairagya will make the heart hard, so don't do it. However, if vairagya is forbidden, if you forbid to practice austerity or vairagya, then the person practicing bhakti will be filled with material desires. You are saying don't practice vairagya. Then while practicing bhakti, if he is not austere enough, then slowly material desires will start accumulating in the heart. And having such desires is against the scriptures, right? Because Vishnu Puran says, what does Vishnu Puran says? Vishnu Puran says, Vishayavishta chittasya Krishnavesha suduratah Varuni diggatam vastu Vrajan naindrim kimapnuya. So Vishnu Puran says, the person absorbed in material enjoyment is far from being absorbed in Krishna. Like Prabhupada also says, right? Krishna consciousness and sense gratification go ill together. So someone may say that a person absorbed in material enjoyment is far from being absorbed in Krishna. How can a person going east catch an object moving towards the west? So sense gratification is one direction and pleasing Krishna is in the other direction. You cannot have both. So therefore, the question that is asked is, you are forbidding vairagya, and doing that, by forbidding vairagya, the person will be filled with material desires, and material desires and desire to please Krishna go ill together. Therefore, a person who is not practicing vairagya cannot practice Krishna consciousness also. This is their argument. Very valid argument, or it seems very valid. So how are you going to explain this? See, one thing is fine, that it may harden my heart, but at least I'm able to practice bhakti. But if vairagya is not there, if vairagya is not practiced, then I will not even be able to practice bhakti also. Where is the question of softening of heart? It will not happen. I will not progress. So how are you going to answer this question? So Srila Rupa Goswami says, Ruchim udvahatas tatra janasya bhajane harehe Vishayeshu garishtopi ragaha prayo viliyate. So Srila Rupa Goswami says that if a person Harehe bhajane ruchim udvahatah, he has little taste for worshipping the Lord. Here, taste refers to faith, not the stage of ruchi. He is talking about just if a person has little faith for worshipping the Lord, Vishayopi, even if he has strong material attractions, he may have strong material attractions, but if he has faith for worshipping the Lord, prayo viliyate. Praya means almost. Viliyate means destroyed. Those attractions are almost destroyed, or for the most part destroyed. Ragaha. During sadhana, without resorting to vairagya. So this is the answer for that question. So just that attachment to Krishna, attachment to serving Krishna detaches that person from material attraction. He need not separately practice any amount of vairagya separately. That is what he is telling here. So, he says that having a taste for bhakti will destroy the attachment to material objects gradually. So, thus the hardness of heart caused by practice of vairagya will not take place, and still detachment will manifest. So when we become attached to Krishna, automatically we will get detached from material objects. Bhakti pareshanubhavo viraktir anyattar chaishatrika ekakala. So progress in bhakti and detachment parallelly manifest when one progresses on the path of bhakti. At the stage of ruchi or taste for bhakti, material attraction will be destroyed for the most part. Prayaha viliyate. The meaning is that it will be completely destroyed with the maturation of bhakti. It is not mentioned but understood from the statement that the taste for bhakti not only produces vairagya, but it also produces jnana also. It not only produces detachment, but it produces jnana also. Because this famous verse that is quoted in Bhagavatam, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitah Janayatyashragyam Jnanam Chayadhaitukam. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitah. By rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Lord Vasudev, Janayati, it gives birth to Ashu, it very quickly gives birth to Vairagyam and Ahaitukam Jnanam, costless knowledge and detachment from this world. Just by practice of bhakti, it generates. Right? So therefore, it says that Vairagya need not be separately practiced at all. It is not at all a limb of bhakti. So don't spend time. If you have time, spend it in worshipping Krishna. And don't be afraid that, oh, wouldn't it be better off if I spend that time cultivating some detachment? So Krishna says, trust me. Engage in my service, detachment will automatically follow. Janayatyashu vairagyam jnanam chaya dahaitukam. Don't make separate endeavor and get your heart hardened. Engage in trying to please me. In trying to please me, you unconsciously will become detached and your heart will become butter soft, ready for Krishna to steal it. So that's what he's telling here. So then Srila Rupa Goswami talks about what is that kind of vairagya? Is there some kind of vairagya which he says that, which is suitable for entering bhakti, and in the initial stages of bhakti, it is what kind of vairagya is it which will not harden the heart? Is there some vairagya which will not harden the heart? What kind of vairagya is it? So he talks about it. He talks about, this is the definition of yukta vairagya. He says, yukta means appropriate. Appropriate vairagya. Yukta also means engaging, a kind of vairagya which in which there is engagement of senses. Because generally, vairagya is almost synonymous with non-engagement of senses, taking the senses away from sense objects. So this is yukta vairagya. It can mean, yukta means appropriate, and yukta also means that which involves engagement, where the senses are engaged in sense object, but still it is vairagya. What exactly is it, and what are the aspects of this kind of vairagya? He says the first aspect is anasaktasya vishayan. Anasaktasya vishayan means there is some kind of detachment from that object, from that sense object, which you want to utilize in Krishna's service. You don't wish to engage it in your own sense gratification. Yatarham upayunjataha. This is the second point. Yata arham upayunjataha means uh, suitable objects need to be utilized. Okay. We cannot, so this is an individual thing. Different people can utilize, different objects in the service of Krishna. Some people can utilize, internet in the service of Krishna, but some people who may have a terrible weakness for utilizing for internet, they may end up using it for their own sense gratification. And for them, maybe they can utilize other things for which they may not have a weakness, but that they cannot. So yata arham upayunjata. They should use suitable objects that will help their devotional development. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhi. This is the third aspect. There should be persistent usage of that object in Krishna's service. This is yuktam vairagyam. This is yukta vairagya. It's said to be this kind of vairagya suitable for bhakti. It will not harden the heart. So there is, you see, utilization, usage. You do use. There is engagement of senses. There is engagement of senses in sensory activities, but one does not do it for one's own gratification. One is doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. Okay. So in bhakti, there are multiple levels of practice. Okay. Levels of devotional service. Okay. First is the bottommost is the level of, you can say, succumbing. The level of succumbing. The second is the level of dovetailing. Okay. The third is the level of yukta vairagya. And the fourth is the level of spontaneous devotional service. Okay. So these are the four levels. The level of succumbing, and all these are within the practice of devotional service. In the initial stages, one want to utilize many objects for Krishna's service. One may want to utilize WhatsApp for Krishna's service. So But in trying to use WhatsApp or social media, one may time and again actually use them for one's own sense gratification. Apart from, he may use it most of the times he may use it for Krishna's service, but some of the time he may utilize it for his own sense gratification. So so that way he may succumb. Every once in a while he may succumb, but he will get up and try to progress further. So this is the first level. Okay. Then when he develops some level of detachment, but still there is attachment to particular services, attachment to particular objects. One may think that, oh, I really, I'm really good at computers, and any kind of computer related service for Krishna I wish to do. So, and he may not succumb to sense gratification, but he may utilize it genuinely for Krishna service. This is the level of dovetailing. This is a higher level, which is very good. But the third level is the level of Yukta Vairagya, where Anasaktasya Vishayan, he does not have any personal attachment to that particular service. He is only attached to service in the service of Krishna. He can without having any detachment. So this is the level of Yukta Vairagya. He has no personal attachment to that, and he can utilize it. So this is still higher. And the highest level is the level of spontaneous devotional service, which is practiced at the stage of bhava or prema, where there is only one desire, or only one thing exists, which is the spontaneous desire to please Krishna. So only the spontaneous desire to please Krishna remains, and that is the highest level of, you can say, devotional service. So many times, level 2 and 3 are sort of clubbed, dovetailing and Yukta Vairagya. Many times it is mentioned, when talking about Yukta Vairagya, it is mentioned that dovetailing propensities. No, dovetailing is not exactly Yukta Vairagya. It is one level lower than Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya is higher. Anyway, we will see the practical understanding of Yukta Vairagya in the next section, Krishna willing, if he allows some time. So we will see that also. Srila Jiva Goswami says, with this verse, the author shows the type of Vairagya which is suitable for entering Bhakti and which was previously mentioned. The Vairagya of the person employing material objects. So there is employment of material objects, right? But only to the extent that they are favorable for his devotional development. Yata arham. So that's why Bhakti Vinod Thakur gives 3 simple questions to ask whether you are practicing Yukta Vairagya or not. First thing is, do you want it, or does Krishna want? Is it your want or Krishna's want? And then he says, are you attached to it? And the third thing is, are you feeling spiritually more nourished after utilizing it in Krishna's service? Okay, so then it is fit for you. Do you want it, or does Krishna's service need? And are you attached to it? And after utilizing it, are you feeling spiritually more nourished? So then it is good for you. So yatarham. So only to the extent they are favorable for this devotional service development, while being detached from material enjoyment, suitable for bhakti. So for Yukta Vairagya, different objects may fall within Yukta Vairagya. For someone, they can easily use internet in the service of Krishna, and they may not have a weakness for internet. They may not misuse internet and utilize it for their own personal gratification. They can use, that is Yukta Vairagya for. But for someone else who may have a weakness for internet, they may utilize it in all other kinds of personal gratification also. Then it is not fit. It is not yata arham upayanjatah. It is not an object that is very favorable for his bhakti. Okay. So he says, in this, there should be persistence in relating the objects to Krishna, which means whenever it is utilized, it should be in the service of Krishna only. Right. So therefore, Yukta Vairagya is actually a very, it's difficult to follow, and it is only gradually followed. The more one progresses, the more and more objects one is able to utilize in Krishna's service, and more completely one is able to utilize it in Krishna's service. Otherwise, when we are using, sometimes most of the times we may fall in the category of dovetailing, where we do have some personal attachment to that object, and some of the times we may go in the first level also, the level of succumbing, where we may end up actually utilizing it for our own gratification, apart from utilizing it in Krishna's service also. So gradually, when one progresses, one will less and less hover around 1 and spend more time in 2 and 3. And then when he progresses more and more, he will leave even the stage of 2 and come to the stage 3, which is Yukta Vairagya. And he perfects Yukta Vairagya, then he will come to the stage 4, which is the level of spontaneous devotional service. Like that. On the other hand, the kind of Vairagya which we are supposed to give up, which Srila Rupa Goswami is telling, this is not a limb of devotional service. That kind of Vairagya is described here. This is called as Falgu Vairagya. Falgu Vairagya means useless Vairagya. Prapanchikataya buddhya harisambandhi vastunah mumukshubhihi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. So Falgu Vairagya. Falgu Vairagya means parityaga, when one rejects. Yukta means to engage. Parityaga means to reject. So he thinks in terms of rejection. But what does he reject? Hari Sambandhi Vastunaha. Things which have a very prominent relationship with Krishna, they are Hari Sambandhi Vastu, but he is rejecting it. Who is rejecting it? Mumukshubhihi. A person who is fed up with suffering in this material world, and he wants to give up all kinds of material miseries. Mumukshu is liberation consciousness. He is moksha parayan. He is not Narayana parayan. So such people are completely meditating on moksha. And why do they reject it? Why do they reject these objects which have some connection with Krishna, which have some utility in Krishna's service? Why do they reject it? Prapanchikataya buddhya. Because they think that these things are simply material objects. They are just material objects. They are things of this world. They are fit to be rejected. They can't see the inherent spiritual potential in that object. They can't see that it can find utility in Krishna's service. Okay. So this is Falgu Vairagya. Okay. So on one side, okay, on the middle of the spectrum is Yukta Vairagya. Okay. Where there is engagement and detachment. Okay. So on one end of the spectrum of this Yukta Vairagya is there is detachment but no engagement. Okay. This is the Jnani. This is Falgu Vairagya. Okay. And this makes the heart hard. Okay. And on the other side is no detachment, but full engagement in one's own sense gratification. This is a materialistic person. And this also makes the heart very hard. This also makes the heart very hard, actually. Right? So, both are unfavorable. Because, so therefore, Yukta Vairagya, there is engagement and there is detachment, and this makes the heart very soft. He says, one should also understand what type of Vairagya is unsuitable or useless for Bhakti. The author thus speaks of Vairagya of those opposed to the Lord, which ends in offense. Hari Sambandhi Vastu, useful in the service of the Lord, refers to things such as the Lord's food remnants, and one will reject that also. Oh, no, 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 no. I will not eat because I will become attached to it and I will sort of get trapped in this material world like that. So he says, the rejection of objects related to the Lord is of two types. There are two types of rejecting Hari Sambandhi Vastu, objects connected to the Lord. The first type is not asking for those objects related to the Lord. Asking. And the second type is rejecting them when they are offered. So the second type is very serious offense. First type is still not very favorable. One should understand that the second type of rejection becomes an offense. This is stated in the Vishnu Yamala. Prasada agrahanam Vishnor varjayed Vaishnava sada. Quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas. This says, the Vaishnava should never refuse the prasad of Vishnu. He should accept it, at least accept little bit of it. He may not necessarily eat the whole thing. Okay. So, just hold on for 1 second. So this is what we have seen from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu about the role of Vairagya in Bhakti, what kind of Vairagya is favorable, what kind of Vairagya is not favorable, why separate cultivation of Vairagya is unfavorable, and if that kind of Vairagya is not cultivated, how will we progress on the path of Bhakti, because we will be very much attached to material enjoyment. How will we detach ourselves from material enjoyment? So we saw all these various topics that we saw. So now it's already time. So there's not much time left, and I have two more things which I thought I will cover in detail. But anyway, I will at least touch these topics. There is till now we have discussed from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. I wanted to discuss a small section from Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrit by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If you remember, we did discuss about these 4 levels, right? The level of succumbing, then comes the level of doubttailing, then comes the level of Yukta Vairagya, then spontaneous devotional service. So, in this particular section, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says how through Vairagya, one comes to the stage of prema, which is the stage of spontaneous devotional service. How through Yukta Vairagya one comes to the stage of prema, he discusses. So I will not read through the whole thing, but I will read some sections of it because we are running short of time. So he says, after Sanatan, all of this, the Lord taught about rejection of dry renunciation, which is Falgu Vairagya or Shushka Vairagya, right? Unfavorable for attaining prema, and acceptance of Yukta Vairagya, which is favorable for attaining prema. He says, Yukta Vairagya Sthiti Sabha Shikaila, Shushka Vairagya Jnana Sabha Nishedila. So he taught Yukta Vairagya and he rejected this Falgu Vairagya or Shushka Vairagya. Okay. And he explains what is this Vairagya or unfavorable renunciation, which we already saw. I won't go into the details of that. So he says, at the most, they may attain Brahman, but they cannot attain anything beyond that. Hmm? So now Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to give a very practical, he's going to give a few practical definitions of Yukta Vairagya and how it can be practiced. Okay. Alternatively, if they place the Lord in the center of their life, okay, this is the first aspect. Placing the Lord in the center of their life. The second aspect is while caring for the body and the house. This is not disallowed in Yukta Vairagya. You can care for your body, you can care for your house while eating and sleeping. This is also allowed. You can eat as much as you want to keep your body fit. You can sleep as much as you want to keep your body and mind fit. You can care for your body, you can care for your house, but place the Lord in the center of your life for His pleasure. Then what happens? Then they gradually increase their devotion to the Lord through their devotional practice. Gradually, devotion increases. Finally, and definitely, prema will be achieved. This is the so very simple explanation, very practical definition of Vairagya. Place the Lord in the center of your life, and for His pleasure, you care for your body, care for your house. You can eat, you can sleep, no problem. And but place the Lord in the center of your life, then gradually increase. This will gradually increase your devotion, and through your devotional service, and finally and definitely prema will be achieved. He says. But practicing dry renunciation was forbidden. So Mahaprabhu spoke to Raghunath Das Goswami, said, Stira hai angareya o na vatul krame krame payaloka bhava sindhukul. So he said, be patient, return home. Of course, we should understand that Raghunath Das Goswami was a perfected devotee.
Next week.
Okay, just hold on. Yeah. Okay. So he was a perfected devotee. So he told him, be patient, don't just keep running away from your house. Don't be a crazy fellow, he says. Gradually, you will cross over the ocean of material existence. Of course, through Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us how to practice Yukta Vairagya, and from Yukta Vairagya, gradually one will progress to the stage of Prema. Markata वैराग्य न कर लोक देखाइया यथा योग्य विषय बुंजे अनासक्त. So this is anasaktiya is anasaktasya vishayan. Yata yogya visha bunja is yatarham upayunjatah. This is the definition of Yukta Vairagya. You should not make yourself a show bottle devotee and become a false renunciant. For the time being, enjoy the material world in a befitting way and do not become attached to it. Right? So, another important aspect of Yukta Vairagya. This is very important. What is that? Antare nishtakara bahye loka vyavahar. Achirata Krishna tomai karibe uddar. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Antare nishtakara. Whatever within your heart, you should keep yourself very faithful. Don't keep announcing it outside. Oh, you know how many rounds I chant, what things I do devotionally. Antare nishtakara. Bahye loka vyavahar. But externally, you may behave like an ordinary man. Achirata Krishna tomai karibe uddar. Very soon, Krishna will deliver you from the clutches of Maya. Don't worry. He says. He says, if a person can carry on their household duties without attachment and worship the Lord with inner steadiness, gradually the material world will fall away. So this is actually Yukta Vairagya. Carry on with your duties, but without attachment. Without attachment. And the third is worship the Lord with inner steadiness. Then gradually the material world will fall away. By devotion, the soul becomes stronger and establishes a relationship with the Lord. This is prema or spontaneous devotional service. In this way, from Yukta Vairagya, one comes to the stage of spontaneous devotional service. But alternative to this, the alternative is to reject the gradual process and become a false renunciate. But this leads to degradation of the soul. Okay. So don't become a false renunciate. To accept necessary objects means not to accept objects for sense gratification or pleasure, but to accept them only for establishing a relationship of the soul with the Lord. This is what is Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. There should be persistent utility of that object in Krishna's service and not for one's own sense gratification. Being merciful, these objects themselves will release the material soul. While the Jnani is thinking, these objects will bind me to this material world, but for a devotee who is utilizing them in Krishna's service, these objects only will deliver him from this material world. The body, house, objects meant for worship can all be used in Yukta Vairagya. All that is necessary is the internal steadiness of the devotee in order to achieve success. This is the most important thing. Internal steadiness, internal desire to achieve the goal, internal desire to please Krishna, internal desire to please Guru, internal desire to progress on the path of devotional service. An external show of steadiness is only for others to see. You don't have to do that. If there is internal devotion and steadiness, very quickly the bondage of the material world will disappear. Pure knowledge and pure detachment will certainly increase as the devotion increases. Pure knowledge, pure devotion. Vasudeve Bhagavati Yoga Prayojitaha Janetyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. Like that. So this is the second theme that I wanted to discuss. And the third theme that I wanted to touch, which we may not necessarily have time, because I want to leave sufficient time for some discussing question and answers. So how do we develop Vairagya and other favorable Vaishnava qualities? How do we do that? That's another topic that I wanted to discuss. But I don't think we will have much time to cover that, because if I do that, then we will not have any time for some discussions. And these kind of topics, there should be sufficient time for a discussion. So I think I will pause here and wait for some discussion points. So thank you all very much for your patient listening, and thank you very much to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanava Pranam. What a beautiful class, Prabhu. Thank you so much. First of all, you started the class with showing here this spiritual motivation, what to talk, for Bhakti Sangha. That was so beautiful of you, that you think of us so much, what to talk, what topic should be good. And then you chosen Vairagya. Certainly it's and you went so much in depth of Vairagya. I'm like, what one can speak on Vairagya? Krishna says Vairagya is, is the sword of, but wow, Prabhu, what a class! Such a beautiful class, Prabhu. I love the points, so many points. Bhakti causes bhakti. That's a strong statement. What a beautiful, and you give so many references from different shastras. Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very, very beautiful, Prabhu. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I'll just go ahead with the question answer session here. Gail Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah. Oh my God, several questions. So repeat. You were talking about hard heart, soft heart. can you just describe what you actually mean by hard heart? Is it a lack of compassion for others, including Krishna? Is it
Yeah. Yeah, a kind of selfish absorption, and when it comes to relationship with Krishna, one becomes so selfishly absorbed that, because bhakti comes from the bhaja dhatu. The root word is bhaja. Bhaj means to share in one sense. But when one becomes very selfishly absorbed, he's unwilling to share anything, because everything could be used for his own purpose. So, but when one becomes soft-hearted, then he is willing to share everything with others. When it comes to Krishna, to gain a relationship with Krishna, when it comes to people of this world, compassionately wanting to share his fortune with the others. So hard-heartedness means an unwillingness to share, either in the form of compassion towards other living entities, or with Krishna, with a desire to establish a relationship with Krishna.
So, a person who is this Vairagi, he doesn't want to use anything for himself. But why should that make him unwilling to use it for Krishna? Why?
Because he is thinking, if I use it, Krishna may be happy, but I may get trapped in this material world.
Oh.
So, I mean, Krishna will get pleasure, but what about me? He will get pleasure and I will stay in this material world all the time. So, no way, I don't want to get trapped.
Oh, so then therefore he does not have any understanding of the concept of akarma.
No. Well, yes, to some extent, yes. He's not akarma of the form of bhakti. He does not have any understanding of akarma of the form of bhakti.
Okay.
Yeah, because akarma can be nishkama. Nishkama karma yoga is also akarma. He may have faith in that, at least in the early stages. But he may not have trust or faith in akarma of the form of bhakti, where devotional activities could be performed for the Krishna.
You said for Krishna?
Yeah, for Krishna. Yeah.
Okay, and then one other thing is this jnana. Those who are, when we talk about jnana not being a limb of bhakti, right? I just want some clarification on that, because we as devotees, we do develop gyan, our spiritual knowledge of shastras and like this, right? But the gyan that you're talking about, that is not a limb of bhakti, is, I mean, I know you mentioned
yeah, we did discuss about it.
Yeah, that these kind of gyanis, they're interested in defeating others in philosophy, something like that.
That is one kind. That is the process. But also the content is mostly focused on discussing the qualitative oneness between the living entity and the Supreme Lord, which is true. We are not denying it, but that's not our. We do understand it, but that's not our active meditation. We don't actively meditate on the qualitative oneness between the Jiva and the Supreme Lord.
And then just last thing, it would be nice if you could share at least one tip for trying to how we can develop vairagya.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. So now you have opened the, I won't say Pandora's box. No, it's not the right thing to say, but that practically opens us to this last topic, which is how do you actually develop? So anyway, I will directly go to, I will skip this first part because this is a very, I take a very gradual approach to build this whole thing, but the essence is this. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunes tatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratena satidavati. So all the good qualities naturally develop in a person in whose heart bhakti resides. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunes tatra samasate. All good qualities manifest in his heart if there is devotional service in his heart, and that includes vairagya actually. So he says, I will read some part of it. He who reaches the highest stage is the best, since he becomes endowed with all good qualities while destroying all bad qualities. But even without reaching the perfect stage, which means he may not have all good qualities, the devotee at the stage of sadhana should also be considered the best. He is better than, okay, anyway, this is, these sentences you will understand only if you understand the context, so I don't want to go into the details of this. But I will add one more point. This is the 13th chapter Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks about the 20 elements of knowledge, right? The 20 elements of knowledge, where he talks about various qualities: amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, kshantirarjavam, freedom from pride, adambitvam, not very ostentatious, ahimsa, following non-violence, forbearance, sincerity, like that. And one of the qualities that he mentions here is Maicha Ananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharini. Devotion to me with undeviating attention. This is one of the 20 qualities that he mentions. Okay. Now, what I want you to focus is the commentary given by Srila Prabhupada and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to this verse about the 20 qualities. I will just read the essence of the whole thing. He says, the devotees zealously engage in one element mentioned in the 11th verse, which is Maicha Ananya Yogena Bhakti Ravya Vicharini. Okay, zealously means enthusiastically. One enthusiastically engages in this one element, right? Devotion to me with undeviating attention. Says the other 17 items manifest automatically for those who engage in that one item. The bhaktas do not devote effort to the 17 items individually. This is the tradition. This is the point, actually. And Srila Prabhupada also mentions the same thing. Prabhupada says, of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Maicha Ananya Yogena Bhakti Ravibhicharini. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop within him. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavatya Kinchana Sarvai Gunis Tatra Samasate Sura. All the good qualities of knowledge develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. So the point is, I gave the example of the father who is sharing his ice cream with the son, right? So what does he have to do to develop detachment from the ice cream? All that he needs to do is to have love for his son. To the extent that he has love for his son, he'll be willing to share, because the pleasure that he gets in seeing his son happy will be more deep-rooted than the pleasure that he would get by actually eating that ice cream. So that's the point.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail Mataji. Sureshwar Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for a wonderful class and very detailed on Vairagya. For us to understand the right perspective. So, Prabhuji, this question I had, we say like Krishna has 64 qualities. Like in beginning you mentioned. How many qualities that Radharani and Balaram ji have, Prabhu?
Well, Okay. This is something well, I don't want to. It is mentioned that, of course, Srimati Radharani has 100 qualities, of which 26 prominent qualities are mentioned. But of the 64, it's little bit unfair to compare that way. And like say, for example, Rupa Madhuri, because you have to compare like with like, right? Because there is a comparison with Jiva Tattvas, Vishnu Tattvas, and Krishna. So Radharani is neither Jiva Tattva nor Vishnu Tattva nor Krishna. So that kind of a comparison is not very fair comparison as such, because Radharani actually complements Krishna in every way. And with respect to Balramji, you can say, as far as I understand, 60 qualities. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama.
Prabhuji, one more thing. I heard the definition in same lines, Prabhu. Plenary portion means complete, Prabhu, right? Plenary means complete.
Yeah, that may be the etymological meaning, but complete in some sense, but not complete in all sense.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sureshwar Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So we have a little more time. We have one more hand and one question in the chat box. Do you have some time, Prabhu? Can we go ahead with the question?
Yeah.
Megha Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances to all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. What a such a beautiful class. So many different points that you gave about Vairagya and what Yukta Vairagya is and how what Falgu Vairagya is. My question is in reference to this determination. So when we have 2.41 Bhagavad Gita says Yavastaitmika buddhi rekeha kurunandana bahushakhayanatascha but yes. So it means you have to have resolute, you have to be resolute in purpose to attain, Krishna and bhakti for Krishna and prem for Krishna. So when we sometimes, with that determination that we have, sometimes, and it is that attachment to Krishna in a way that we want to attain this. We're in the process of wanting the Krishna prema, but we don't have the same level of enthusiasm at that point. So what does that mean? How do we get this enthusiasm? Even after practicing, I think, in the beginning there's an enthusiasm, but then over time with the determination, the enthusiasm really goes a little lower. So how do we keep both the determination and enthusiasm at the same level?
Well, it's yeah, you can try for it, but it won't be always possible. The best means is to have the right kind of association. When we have the right kind of association, always inspiring and very advanced, so then whenever we falter, they can catch hold of us and keep pushing us up. So association is the key. If we have the right kind of association, then to maintain the enthusiasm becomes a little bit more easier, even though it may not be possible all the time, but it becomes a little more easier.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhu. And so just the follow-up question then, like within the home, that the association can deviate from those things, because it's obviously Krishna given everything that we have, so we don't even want to renounce these kinds of things, and we need to be compassionate towards all the living beings, even within the home, who may be not a devotee or who's on the path of being a devotee. So at that point, that association, does that impact? Because we may have the congregation association, but then how to have this association within one's home to help us progress, even if they're maybe on the path but not there yet.
Well, in that case, you can focus on giving your association to them. That's a very good focus. Because if everyone wants to take higher association, then we will never get higher association, because that higher devotee will also be looking for higher association only, right? So sometimes while you have higher association, you take; while you don't have, you give. So that way we are focused and engaged, and that way we won't feel deviated actually.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That makes sense. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Thank you, Megha Mataji. Thank you for your beautiful question. Indulekha Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for a very, very technically for explaining the whole Yukta Vairagya process very technically. Prabhuji, I have a very, very simple question. I just wanted to bring things down to my level of understanding, so that's why. So, Prabhuji, you were talking about the difference between dovetailing our services towards Krishna and also Yukta Vairagya. So, with an example, I just wanted to know, can we say that any service performed for like Bhakti Sangha would be Yukta Vairagya, or what category would that fit in?
It depends, Mataji. I cannot say. Well, yeah, someone may have, if someone says any service for Krishna, I'll be very happy, Is there any service available? And someone says, oh yeah, you can act as a moderator for this Bhakti Sangha group. Will you do it? I said, yes, why not? That is Yukta Vairagya. Or if you may, or your question may be, oh, you know what? Actually, I am very good. I really love to stay in touch with people, contact people, and I really like to coordinate Zoom sessions and these kind of online sessions, and staying in touch with people and uploading the YouTube videos and all that. So I can utilize it in Krishna's service. Is there a service that kind of service that's available for you with you? And yeah, sure. Please join the Bhakti Sangha Japa group. You will be sufficiently engaged. This is dovetailing.
So Yukta Vairagya would be much on a much more higher platform, because when you put those three questions, okay, kind of almost all the services kind of match. Our answer would be yes in all of those cases. So that's why I was just confused. But
yeah,
thank you so much.
Hey, Yukta Vairagya is not impossible. But we may not be able to utilize all objects and on the platform of Yukta Vairagya, because we may have weakness for certain things. But gradually, when we progress, we will be able to utilize more and more things on the platform of Yukta Vairagya.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for coming and giving such a wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Indulekha Mataji. Beautiful question. The services you perform in Sangha are unmatchable. So thank you so much. Anuradha Mataji, please go ahead.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance. Do you still have time, Prabhu?
Yeah, yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, mine may not be totally relevant too, but if you think it is appropriate, please answer, Prabhu. Maybe in the beginning of the service, we may not have any attachment or anything, any motive in our heart or mind, but while doing it,
you may get attached.
You may either attached or lust or greed or envy. All these anarthas may just come upon us, and you realize the service is very important, but externally you're doing the service, but internally you're so tormented by your own mind. Then what is the solution, Prabhu?
Well, prayer, we offer prayers to Krishna to help us overcome, and we take assistance of devotees, guidance from devotees. And even in the beginning, when we thought that actually I don't have any attachment, that was probably just because we were not discriminative enough to actually spot it. But then once you progress a little bit more on the path of Krishna consciousness, that devotional discrimination we develop and then we notice it. It's not that initially it was not there, but just that we were not ready to notice it. We were not, qualified to notice it. But over a period of time, we are able to notice. But that's okay. That's anartha nivritti is always gradual, and it is always gradual for every single sadhaka. So that is not a problem at all. Just that we need to diligently continue our devotional service, offer prayers to Krishna, seek help from Krishna, seek help from devotees, try to please them so that they feel inspired to help you or help us in our time of crisis. That's all.
Prabhu, I have a related question. Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is one thing. And while serving, especially the frontline services where people get to see you serving, and automatically glorification follows. So in that case, though we say this is Guru, Gauranga, Krishna, and all this externally, internally it's, oh, I have become a pure devotee. This conviction, this is mind, and so obstinate, and the false ego, Prabhu. How to get rid of, again, prayer, Prabhu?
Prayer, and again, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami says this desire for pratishtha can be removed by serving the devotees. He says, Sadatvam sevasva prabudaita samanta matulam yata tam nishkasya tvaritam veshayati ihasaha. He says that when we engage in serving exalted Vaishnavas, then this desire for pratishtha or fame or honor goes away, and the pure desire to serve Krishna manifests within the heart. So that is the way. And even Bhaktivinoda Thakur also mentions the same. He says this desire for pratishtha is one symptom of a malnourished heart, a heart which is not sufficiently nourished. So he says, how do you remove this pratishtha? He says, Dadati pratigrinnati yamakyati prichati bhungte bojayate cheva shadvidam priti lakshanam. So through these 6 exchanges, when you experience Vaishnava Priti, and when our heart becomes nourished by that Vaishnava Priti, then the symptoms of malnourishment, which is one of which is pratishtha, the desire for glorification, desire for honor, it will go away. Like that.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Please beg your blessings and prayers. I'm still so in the beginning of my bhakti, and still if all these anarthas are, bow me down, I don't know if I will ever proceed in bhakti. So beg your prayers, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Anuradha Mataji. You share so much Krishna that I think nobody does. So you're such a big devotee, Mataji. Thank you, Balaram Shakti Prabhu. Prabhu, there is 2 more questions in chat box. Do you have enough time, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. There are very beautiful comments from Manmai Mataji, Tiffany Mataji, who was missing you. Actually, she in chat box said yesterday she will miss the class big time because she's giving some classes. Aditi Mataji, everybody is appreciating the class. There is a question from Narhari Devadas Prabhuji. He says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, how to understand today's theme in the context of the verse Vairagya Vidya Nidhi Bhakti Yoga?
Nija Bhakti Yoga. Yeah. So that kind of vairagya is actually it's actually yukta vairagya. So it's not that bhakti is without vairagya, but it has appropriate vairagya, which is yukta vairagya. Vairagya vidya nija bhakti yoga. Yeah. That is one way of understanding it. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. There is another query from Lalitangi Mataji. Lalitangi Mataji is asking, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the enlightening class. It looks like Yukta Vairagya is more difficult than Vairagya. Can you comment on this, Prabhuji, please?
Well, in one sense, let's go back to the definition of Yukta Vairagya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's simplified definition. Let's read it and let's try to understand, is it really that difficult. So he says, I'm going to read this practical definition of Yukta Vairagya by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He says that alternatively, if they place the Lord in the center of their life, while caring for the body and the house, while eating, while sleeping, then they gradually increase their devotion to the Lord through their devotional practice. Finally, and prema will be achieved. So in Vairagya, you are not allowed to eat sufficiently, sleep sufficiently, care for your body sufficiently. You must be detached from your house. Is that difficult? Or just bring Gaurnitai or Jagannath, Baldev, Shubhadra, place them at the center, cook for them, care for them, along with the care for your body, care for your house. You can also honor their remnants, and you can take rest with them also. I mean, not with them, but you can put them to rest and you can also rest. Right? All that is allowed. So why would Yukta Vairagya be more difficult than regular Vairagya? So that's my understanding.
Consciousness, Prabhuji. Yes, we are doing everything. How fully conscious we are. How much fully we are doing it. We are again.
Krishna is not expecting that consciousness immediately. So whatever little consciousness you can muster, do it, and we gradually try to improve. But and in Vairagya also, to maintain, there is no proper consciousness in Vairagya only. But here, I mean, it's not that absolutely you do everything Krishna's service. Sometimes you may be able to do, sometimes you may not be able to do. But at least when we are not able to do, we repent and we beg forgiveness to Krishna and we try to move ahead. So Krishna is not expecting any overnight perfection, and overnight perfection is not possible also. And we should not be too harsh on ourselves, expecting overnight perfection also. It's a gradual process, gradually. Kramenaiva praliyeta Vishnu Bhakti Ratatmanam. It's all gradual.
Shamagori Mataji, please go ahead.
Mataji has okay. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam Krishna Srila Prabhupada. Very, very wonderful class, Prabhuji, and very nice question answers. As always, here when you come, we are like waiting when Prabhuji is coming to give class. So that's the situation. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. When you were saying about the prasadam, I remember the Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya taking prasadam when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave prasadam with Lord Jagannath. Means we don't have to follow any rules and regulations for taking prasadam. And as you said, like, you don't have to reject the prasadam. You can eat a little bit of prasadam like that. So sometimes we see, Prabhuji, some people, they have some other faith, they reject prasadam. No matter how much we trick them to eat prasadam, they just reject prasadam. So unfortunate people like that.
Yeah, it's actually an offense to reject prasadam. Actually.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you, Shamagori Mataji. Sukha Mataji has hand raised. Prabhuji, can we take one more question from Sukha Mataji?
Yeah.
Sukha Mataji, please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Such a beautiful class. In fact, it did take me some time because my question, I'm not able to articulate it well, but I hope you can help me with that. You had mentioned that, a person needs to have initial Shraddha, right? The Adav Shraddha before he can take to the process of Bhakti, and then the process of Vairagya is kind of massaged because of his love for Krishna, like you gave the example of the father and the son. So I was wondering, what about souls who may not have that initial faith, Prabhuji? Then everything becomes a chore, right? I mean, even in the practice of Vaidya Bhakti, I mean, a devotee may have that initial Shraddha, but later on kind of feels a little encumbered by all those regulations and things like that. So how should we, in what perspective can we look at this situation and try to better ourselves?
Well, one can follow to the extent that one has that faith. See, a feeling of encumbrance will be there because we don't have taste for it. But at least we may not have taste for the process, but we may have that attachment for the end product, which is a relationship with Krishna. So, I mean, which is the process? The taste, the encumbrance, do you think a Jnana Yogi will not feel encumbered? A Karma Yogi will not feel encumbered? Materialist will not feel encumbered. If someone wants to become a doctor, then who likes studying? Very rare souls in this world who actually like studying, all these things. But they do study because there is some attachment to the goal, to the end product that comes from studying all that. So is there any process in this world where people are not encumbered by the means? I don't think there is any process, but just they keep going because of their attachment towards the goal, what they can achieve through that means. So as long as we have reasonable attachment towards the means, Krishna does not say that faith may be there, but then definitely because of our conditioning, the practice of devotional service will be at various times not so pleasant, bitter sometimes, but still the end product is always sweet. So we can have our eyes set on the sweet end product, so that we can tolerate some bitterness, and it's not going to remain bitter. Gradually it will become more and more pleasurable. Swadvi kramat bhavati tadgata moola hantri. Gradually it will become more and more pleasurable. But there will always be an intermediate time when it will not be very pleasurable. And I don't think there is anything in this world where you get to have the pleasure while performing it, and there is pleasure while enjoying the end result also. So yeah, that's what I feel.
So would I be right in assuming that only at the higher stages, when we have pure bhakti, is the definition that it's devoid of jnana and vairagya applicable, and susukham kartam avyayam applicable? I mean, because when somebody is a practicing sadhaka, he or she may not experience this.
Well, let me ask you something, Mataji. Many times in first thing, jnana karma the anavritam is applicable right from the beginning. Because as of now, even in this stage, if you think that apart from the limbs of bhakti, I should practice some jnana, some karma, some limbs of yoga also to achieve perfection, that understanding should not be there right from the beginning. But you talk about susukam kartum avyayam, it is pleasurable to perform. Well, these are all relative. Pleasurable means what? If you define pleasure as the pleasure of prema, is that the pleasure we are talking about? Because see, sukam is a relative term. We are comparing with other processes which can give comparable benefits. Actually, there is no process which can give comparable benefits to what bhakti can give. Let us say jnana and yoga as comparable because they can give at least liberation of some sorts. So now compared to, isn't bhakti easy to perform? From a very neutral perspective, looking at the activities which are expected of a bhakti yogi, where there is ample scope for engaging one's senses, even there are 64 limbs, and even within 64 limbs, there is multiple varieties, and in any of these limbs you can engage. This kind of an opportunity is there in which other yoga? So, so therefore, many times the terminologies are not used in a very absolute sense. So when Krishna says susukam, he does not mean that right from the beginning one will experience the bliss of prema. Susukam is a very relative usage of the terminology where one will experience. It is much more pleasurable than practice of jnana or yoga in that sense, actually.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I have one follow-on. Is it okay to ask?
Yeah, one last question, Mataji. Then I have, in exactly 10 minutes, I have my next class. So if you can, yeah, last question.
Sure, Prabhuji. We recently had a devotee, like somebody who, just has joined the Krishna conscious movement, and I mean, in one Bhagavatam session, this devotee asked, so you said, Prabhupada says it's all about chant and be happy, so why are we reading and doing all this? I feel that this is too much beyond what was actually, portrayed to me. So, he or she felt that the process is kind of a little bit more complex than what it appears to be. So, how do we?
Yeah, so of course, what exactly did Prabhupada mean by chant and be happy is something which is debated upon by, are there two instructions involved, or is there one instruction? Is it like chant and you will be happy? Is that? Or is it like, are there two instructions? Chant, first instruction, be happy, second instruction. So what exactly it is that, many people are trying to understand that. But the point is that, see, chant and be happy, first thing, we should have faith in that chanting. So when there is absolute faith in chanting, then as Rupa Goswami says, I don't know how much bliss is there, is two syllables Krishna. And when I chant it, I feel so blissful that I feel like I need thousands of tongues to chant it. It is there. The potential is there. But to realize that potential, we have to chant it with faith. And how do you get that faith? We get faith through hearing only. So, so when you hear about the glories of chanting, then you chant with all the more faith. And also there are certain obstacles to chanting which may affect, which may actually obstruct us from actually experiencing that bliss. So those obstacles can be removed through various other practices like archanam, like that. But this topic we could discuss, how each limb actually contributes to that during sadhana bhakti. We could discuss it someday, but they are all very complementary processes. Unlike the Ashtanga yoga where 8 limbs are there, and 8 limbs are absolutely compulsory limbs, all have to be practiced. But in bhakti, you can, there are a few limbs which you can practice minimum, and the other limbs which you like, you can practice a lot actually. So in one sense, yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very beautiful question answer session. Very beautiful class, Prabhu. Thank you so much. There are so many beautiful comments from Shivani Mataji, Shushmita Mataji, Shri Harigari Mataji, Lalitangi Mataji. Everybody is loving your class. Thank you so much, Prabhu. In the interest of time, you have to go. You have another class, you just said. So, dear devotees, pay our obeisances to Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji, again for your time and so much nectar that you give us for all the time that you come to us. So we look forward for your association again, Prabhuji. Let us pay our obeisances to Prabhuji, dear devotees. Vancha
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Pattanam
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Antraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Ki Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ji ki
Jai.
His Grace Balaram Shakti Prabhu ji ki
Jai.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Bhagavan. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear devotees, for joining. Thank you so much to Prabhuji for his very, very valuable time. We'll end the call here. We won't have parikrama today, and we'll continue with it tomorrow. Hare Krishna.